Hello, friends. Welcome to the adventure of knowledge, although today it's better to say, welcome to the adventure. Today we're telling you Adrian's story. Are we asking the right questions? You can find some examples in this video. How many Adrians are there among you? At some point in our lives, we're all Adrians, right? I invite you to leave yourself questions in the comments. You know, sharing builds us all up.
If you'd like to help us grow and improve, we'll leave the link in the description.
In a world where time seems to slip by without resistance, Adrian, a young architect trapped in monotony, begins to feel like his life has no real purpose. Surrounded by buildings he designed that speak to him nothing, one day he receives a letter with no return address. It contains only one sentence written in gold ink. What you seek is not in what you see, but in what you hear. If you want answers, you must be the flame. Intrigued by the message, determined to find answers, to discover the true meaning of his life, he decides to leave everything he knows behind and embark on a journey with no fixed destination. It's his last chance to find something that makes him feel alive. His first destination takes him to a city where people only speak in whispers. Everyone seems trapped in their own thoughts, unable to communicate openly. There he meets Sarah, a woman who has learned to interpret the echoes of those who have forgotten how to express themselves. Sarah teaches him that most human suffering comes not from what happens in life, but from the stories we tell ourselves. Continuing aimlessly on his way, he comes to a dark cave guarded by a mysterious old man named Lucio. This man shows him a dusty mirror and asks him to clean it. When she does, all the decisions she's made in her life are reflected in that mirror, along with the ones she never dared to make. Facing your own shadows terrifies you, but Lucio tells her, only those who embrace their shadows can truly live in the light. Adrian learns that every fear he has avoided is actually an opportunity for growth. Determined to face his truth, Adrian climbs a mountain that, according to legend, grants clarity to those who seek their purpose. There, he meets Naya, a traveler who has spent years searching for answers. Together, they face a ferocious storm that nearly destroys them. As the storm passes, Naya tells him, "You can't avoid the storms of life, but you can decide how to face them." Adrian finally understands that his purpose is not something he must find, but something he must build with his actions. With a new outlook on life, Adrian believes that when he returns to his hometown, it won't be the same. Instead of soulless buildings, he begins to design spaces that invite human connection and introspection. He no longer looks for answers outside, because he has learned to listen to the inner flame that has always burned within him. With this question in mind, he arrives at a foggy valley, where, after his mountain experience, Adrian feels an inner fire he hadn't noticed before. However, a question still haunts him. How does he fit into the world? Walking slowly, he observes a landscape where the stones have the shapes of faces cut by time. There he meets Renzo, an elderly artist who carves faces in stone to represent those who have been forgotten. Renzo explains that every person leaves a mark on the world, even if it is not always recognized. A person's true legacy is not in what they do, but in how they transform those around them. Adrian understands that his existence is not measured by material achievements, but by the impact he leaves on others. Following the old man Renzo's directions, Adrian arrives at a desert where the sun seems to split in two at sunset. There he meets Jara, an explorer who has traveled to the most inhospitable corners of the world. Jara teaches him that every person has two sides, the one they show to the world and the one they keep silent. In a conversation under the stars, Adrian realizes how much time he's spent trying to be who others expect him to be, instead of embracing his true essence. The world doesn't need more reflections, it needs more of its own light. With this lesson, Adrian decides to leave behind any outside expectations and begin to live with complete authenticity. Adrian's journey is almost over, but before he returns to his hometown, he comes to a stone gate in the middle of an empty field. Upon crossing it, he finds himself in a formless, timeless, and soundless space. There, a voice that seems to emerge from everywhere whispers to him, "Now that you've seen, now that you've heard, what will you create?" Adrian understands that true purpose isn't something you find, but something you build. He returns with a new worldview and begins to transform his surroundings. His legacy won't be what he leaves behind, but the spark he ignites in others. Adrian returns to his city with a new perspective. Nothing has changed physically. The streets are filled with gray buildings, the same shops, the same people. Yet everything feels different. Now it's time to observe people, their unfulfilled dreams, the fears they hide behind their mechanical smiles. Before, he lived trapped in his own routine, oblivious to the lives of others. But his journey has taught him that every human being is a universe unto themselves. He decides he can't return to the same old monotony. If the city doesn't change on its own, he'll be the catalyst for it. Start by organizing open meetings where anyone can share their thoughts without fear. One day, Adrian meets Matteo, an old man who watches him from afar at his meetings. As he approaches, the old man says, "For decades, I listened to people, but never spoke. I realized that true power lies not in speaking loudly, but in listening deeply." Matteo becomes her mentor in true listening. He teaches her that words don't always express what a person means. Often the most important thing is found in the silences, in the way people look at the floor when they speak, in the pause before responding. Adrian learns that his purpose is not just to create spaces for others to speak, but to learn to truly listen. Months have passed. The city is no longer the same. The change is slow but steady. Meeting places have grown. More and more people are participating, and groups have formed where citizens help each other with their personal projects. But one day, Adrian receives a new letter, just like the first, written in gold ink. "You've lit the flame in others, but what about your own?" The question hits him hard. He's dedicated himself so much to helping others that he's forgotten to ask himself what he really wants. And he realizes there's still one more step to take. Adrian decides to do something unexpected. He leaves the city once again. Not because he wants to flee, but because his vision has now expanded. His goal is to expand his message further, to share what he's learned elsewhere. Travel to different countries, learn about new cultures, and learn from people with different perspectives. Each conversation opens up new horizons, a new lesson you hadn't considered before. He begins to write his story in a book, not as a self-help manual, but as a collection of real experiences. It's not about finding definitive answers, but about learning to ask the right questions. Years later, Adrian returns. The city has changed more than he imagined. His legacy lives on, though many don't even remember that he started it. And that's okay, because a person's true impact isn't measured by the number of books they publish, but by the transformation they leave in the hearts of those they touch. He sits on a bench and watches the city at sunset. A young woman approaches him, holding a notebook. "I heard about you a while ago. Now I want to start my own journey. Do you have any advice?" Adrian smiles. He doesn't give her any answers, just says, "Just ask the right question. The journey begins there." The young woman nods, grateful for the simplicity and depth of his words. She walks away, notebook in hand, ready to write the first page of her own story. Adrian gazes at the horizon. He no longer seeks answers, because he understands that every day brings new questions. The flame he ignited in others remains lit, and as long as humanity continues to advance, there will always be those who seek their own truth. With a calm smile, he closes his eyes and breathes deeply. His journey never ends. It just changes shape.
If you'd like to help us grow and improve, we'll leave the link in the description.